something we talked about last week, or you guys talked about last week, was with all the big coaching changes, one of the biggest ones I think was Alabama and Nick Saban retiring or allegedly retiring. I don't know exactly how much you can give it. I personally still think that he might pop back up at some point. I don't know how. I mean, he's only 72, but he was kind of a very spry 72. So that's that case there. But ultimately, what wound up going on right after that show, next day, Alabama finally hired a coach. They hired Washington's Kalen DeBoer. He just led Washington to a full-on college football playoff national championship game. I think he was the second choice because it seemed like Oregon's Dan Lanning turned it down, Scott. So I will ask you, is Kalen DeBoer, who I think is an impressive coach, and especially with what he did with Washington, is he a better hire than Dan Lanning, who turned them down? And how hard is the Saban legacy honestly going to be to live up to for DeBoer?
The latter part of that question is the easier thing to answer. And that is one shadow that's going to be casted on you your whole life. Like, it doesn't matter how much he wins, it's always going to be going up against Nick Saban. And Nick Saban's a freak of nature. He's just some alien who got dropped down on this planet and has been doing things in the college football world for years that no one has done, nobody will ever replicate or anything like that. So I think that's one thing that especially the fan base in Alabama need to get through their head, is that, like, he's not Nick Saban. Nobody's Nick Saban. It's like what he did is different. Now, when you ask if Dan Lanning would have been the better hire, I don't feel like he would have been. I mean, Dan Lanning's only been a head coach now for 2 years. Granted, it's been at Oregon. He's had a lot of success up there. He went 10-3 last year. He went 12-2 this year. Went to the Fiesta Bowl this year and won that. But Kalen DeBoer, I mean, he has a couple more years on him. He started his head coaching at Fresno State, had really great success there. And then the last 2 years in Washington, he went 11-2 and 14-1 in a Huskies team that a lot of people who from the outside looking in, when you think college football, you don't think Washington as far as being a powerhouse in the college football world. I really hope the best for them, but they are currently hemorrhaging talent. You have people leaving the roster and going into the transfer portal now, going left and right. And then you think about a lot of the other names that were kind of tied to him. You had Lane Kiffin that was tied long time, under the tutelage of Nick Saban. Everyone thought he was going to leave Ole Miss to go there. He never ended up going. Steve Sarkisian trying to leave Texas to go to Alabama, which didn't really make sense because they're going to SEC next year. Texas has very deep pockets. It's not like they can entice them. There's nothing more that Alabama can get them at that point. If anything, you're just going to tarnish your own potential resume by going to Alabama. Same thing with Dan Lanning. He has Nike money. Do you think he really wants to go to Alabama? He has his whole pick of the litter from all the kids on the West Coast that he can grab if he wants to. He's not going to try to compete in the Southeast with anybody else. He can do whatever he wants. But I think it just seems like it'd be a common thread that we've talked about. I think the biggest thing for Alabama right now is that fan base. You got to think all these Alabama Crimson Tide fans that are around our age and younger are just like how the Patriots fan bases were. All they have known is success. They've never seen a losing season. They've never seen like 9-4 or 8 wins. That's when shit hits the fan, and giving a coach like Kalen DeBoer the leash to, like, okay, figure it out. Don't be reactive and just get rid of them after 2 years, because that's just going to set you even further back. They didn't see Alabama when they were kind of struggling there like the 90s.
And if you were to look at Alabama's social media, I'm happy to report to you, Nick Saban is alive. But the way that they've been posting about him, holy shit, you'd think the man died.
Weren't they leaving stuff on him on the sidewalk?
Yeah, they were leaving him at the statue and stuff like that they have down there in Alabama. They're just leaving like boxes of oatmeal cream pies and like Natty Light and packs of cigarettes and all sorts of shit. And it's just
very Alabama.
And then like they were even like you even saw like videos of like these kids chanting like "We don't want Dabo" and like all this stuff. Like they didn't want, like, Dabo's not leaving Clemson to go to Alabama. He's very cushy right there in South Carolina.
You are very happy that Mike Norvell wound up staying with FSU, right? Because that was a hot rumor, and he leveraged the shit out of it for a fat contract.
You know what? And it's not even just him, because Mike Norvell's agent His name is what is it? Jimmy Sexton. He is the agent not only for Mike Norvell, he's the agent for like Dan Lanning and Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer. He's the agent for all these people. So like if anyone won, he won because he was able to leverage all these new contracts and extensions for all these coaches, and he's getting a cut of everything. I think Mike Norvell falls in the same boat as Dan Lanning, though, is that he has been there for a couple years now. He's really built that franchise back up to national prominence. And if anything, he's already gotten like 5 or 6 transfers from Alabama to come over to Florida State. So it's like he has Alabama players without having to go to Alabama.
And this kept it from getting you Coach Prime at Alabama.
Oh,
you didn't have to do, which just to close a loop here with RG3, that's who he was suggesting should go to the Dallas Cowboys and be their head coach.
So fucking stupid. No, because if you think about it, Alabama doesn't need Deion for anything. Deion needs Alabama. That's why you were able to see a school like Colorado, who's kind of like one of those mid-major programs who would need a lot more help from a name like Deion to come in as head coach to get some more revenue to come in. Alabama doesn't need him, and they don't want that circus.